We are live.
Hey guys.
Again, this is our second live stream. Live. We're gonna wait like a minute or two, let people kind of roll in, and then we'll start. We'll start at like the 2-minute mark.
2-minute mark.
So it is 1:15 our time here in Costa Rica. How you guys doing? What's happening?
Germany.
Hey, how you guys doing?
What's up?
What's up? The Blue Comedy. Loft. Hey, from Denmark. What's up, Denmark? Holland. Pretty cool to see you guys from all over the world. Hi, all. Hey, what's happening? Florida. What's happening in Florida? Rufus, I love your videos. Thank you. Hi from Germany. Jane. Hey, Jane.
Uh-oh.
Video is not available.
Puerto Rico. No one cares where you're from. We care. Hello from England. It's not starting. We have to reconnect. Can you see us? Can you hear us? Scotland. Wow.
It says
Are you on the
zero
internet?
People. It says that there's 0 people. There's nobody in the...
Hi from Peru.
Oh, yeah, I guess it's working.
Can you guys hear us?
Yeah, on our end it says video and audio or audio not available.
Hi from New Zealand. If you can read it, if you can hear us right now,
Hey, the young filmmaker.
if you can read us right now, type the number 9. Okay, well, it sounds like they can hear us. Ah, there it is.
Yeah.
All right, guys. All right, so what we're going to do for this live stream is we're going to basically be on topic. So if you guys want to ask some questions, we ask that you try to keep it on topic so we're not all over the place, and then the kids can answer. So the topics are basically learning to surf or progressing your surfing. And then after that, we're going to talk about surfboards, gear, kind of like what kind of surfboard or size for what, because those are our 2 most commonly asked questions. So we're going to start off with basically just a little bit about learning to surf. And then you guys just go ahead, and if you have any questions, whether you're beginning or you're trying to become an intermediate or you're trying to learn something, just hit us up on those kind of questions. How do I do airs and floaters? All right, well, let's get to some of that. Okay, so let's start with some tips on learning to surf. So the number 1 question people always ask us, by far, has to do with surfboards. They always ask, I'm getting a new board, or I've been surfing for a month, I've been surfing for 6 months, I want to get a new board, what should I get? Well, if you are learning to surf, always go bigger. Bigger is always better when you're learning. Doesn't mean you have to go with a long board, but you just want to go bigger than a short board. You guys have any tips on learning to surf?
Well, finding a beach that maybe will make it easier. Like obviously, maybe a wave that breaks really quickly will make it more difficult to learn when you're first starting out.
Right. So probably the 3 most important things in learning to surf are you need the right kind of wave, and you need the right kind of surfboard, and then you need somebody to show you the ropes. So whether that's a friend or a surf instructor. One of the things that I always tell people, and a lot of guys don't do this, and I'm guilty of this with like snowboarding, is we just think we can figure it out. We think that we'll just watch, figure it out, just give me a board, I'll go. And you will figure it out, but the problem is it's going to take you 10 times longer. But if you have somebody like an actual surf instructor, not just a friend that surfs, it's better to have somebody you're paying, because then it's their job to teach you. You don't need to have a surf instructor every time, but for the first couple times to really explain things to you or explain a new surf spot. Anything else, guys? What do you want to add to that?
Well, also, like, surfing somewhere it's like sand bottom. Definitely not a reef like when you're beginning.
Right. If you can get sand bottom, that's great, but not everybody has sand bottom. I would say just kind of a mushy wave, so you don't want a shallow barreling, pitching wave to learn how to surf. You want to start off and progress through basically, here we have both and it depends on the tide, but you'll see that beginners at our beach hardly ever come out at low tide. They're always mid tide to high tide. because the wave is mushier, it's more gentle, and it's deeper. So when you wipe out, you have a lot more distance from the top of the water to the bottom.
I've got a question regarding this topic.
All right, let's do it.
Vajtech asked, what was the most difficult thing when you were starting to surf?
Who asked it?
Vajtech. Or
Vajnov.
Yep.
Vajnov. What was the most difficult thing when learning? Do you guys even remember?
Oh,
Speak loud.
probably the worst
can let it go.
accident that I can remember is it was like low tide one day. It was like a couple years ago, and I was like practicing floaters. So the waves were like closing out, and they were perfect for floaters, but it was also kind of dangerous. So I like went for a floater, and then the wave just pushed the board like into my face. And I had a rash guard on and just got like completely ripped off, and I got this like bruise on my face.
I remember this. It was kind of a low tide barreling day, which was a little bit above Keely's probably level at the time. We're talking 2.5, 3 years ago. And she wiped out so hard that it ripped, it completely took her rash guard off, and we lost her rash guard.
Yeah.
It like just came off like a.
Well, it was a little bit big.
It was just like. Whew.
It was a little bit big.
like somebody with the table, you know, and then the tablecloth going like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it was like.
I think my worst accident surfing that I remember is once I was surfing, I like fell, and then I think the fin hit me right at the top of my forehead, and then my entire face was
You still have a scar.
kind of covered in blood. But it wasn't that bad, but the water with the blood mixed together makes it seem like there's tons of blood.
My worst accident, stitches. I've had stitches about 3 times from fins, nose. Probably the most dangerous accident I had was at Sunset Beach when it was about 12 to 15 foot. And my surfboard got blown off the top of the wave. And then when I came out of the water, I couldn't see my board. And I had like a 10-foot leash. I was looking around, and then next thing I know, the board hit me on the top of my head and broke in half and almost knocked me out. Especially because I was surfing like it was like a 7'8", pretty 7'10", kind of a minigun. That was probably the worst accident I think that could have turned out really badly. Luckily, I didn't go out. If I would have passed out, that would have been it. All right, so let's move on. Let's ask some questions, Atua, on topic. See what you can find.
Well, this one's about fins. Want to read it?
What's that one right there about more expensive fins?
Even Charles, is it worth it to buy more expensive fins or just go with the plain white ones?
All right, that's actually a good question. I would say that the problem with the plain plastic ones is they do break a lot easier. But if you're a beginner, you're not gonna really be able to tell the difference. And unless you're really cranking bottom turns, I think cheap fins are the way to go, because probably fins are your equipment that get banged up the most. They're always getting nicked. You're always hitting them on stuff. If there's anything, you always hit your fins. They always end up really nicked. And honestly, I can't say that name brand fins are any better than some of those generic brand fins out there. I find just experimenting with them. Sometimes I'll have two large side fins with one medium middle fin, and then the middle will be like a name brand fin, and the sides will be like some non-name brand fin, and I'll be like, wow, that seems to work the best. So
Especially because the cheap ones can sometimes be like really flexy, so you may get like easy to maybe spin or do certain manuevers.
Yeah,
crazy
like
how fast these
plastic-
questions are.
the cheap white ones, they could be good for like long boards.
I had a few questions about if we're scared of sharks, do we worry about them?
How could I improve my backside bottom turn? That's a good one. We'll cover that one right now, because when people are learning how to surf, and this was by Jose Alonso Vasquez. Feels like I might know you. How do you improve your backside? Backside is always one of the hardest things for people that are progressing from beginner to intermediate. And the main reason is because you have a blind spot. So it's kind of like you have to have faith when you go backside. You kind of have to almost lean into it, and you can't see behind you. Even when you turn your head, you can see, but you still can't see behind you. Whereas when you're front side, you see everything. And when you have everything, when you have vision like that, you have confidence, so you're not afraid to lean into it. So if you're trying to improve your backside surfing, meaning just getting the flow, which is what you want to start with, just feeling real comfortable, it's about projecting your vision before you stand up, and then basically just getting good at turning your head and turning your body, especially when you're going up the wave and turning into it, and not having that fear of like falling. Sometimes just let yourself fall, crank a bottom turn, and see how far on rail you can get, and don't worry about falling. If you fall into the wave, then that'll just teach you how far you can go. But a lot of people won't get on rail enough because they're kind of have that kind of off balance feeling, and that's why backside's always a hard one.
I think it's good if you just go for it, like just try to do it, because then at least you'll feel maybe what you did wrong. Whereas if you always just like kind of like avoid going for it, then you never end up learning.
All right, here's another question. You got anything to add to that, Keely?
Yeah, you definitely have to like.
Jamoncito or jamoncito, however you pronounce it, either
Jamoncito.
It's a little ham in Costa Rica. Anyways, I live in a city, Barcelona, Spain, where the waves are not that common, so I guess it's a little more fickle. Taking this into account, how can I work on starting to do some maneuvers and attacking the lip? All right, good question. So many questions. All right, so learning to do maneuvers, probably one of the best things you can do is, if you have fickle waves, that means you're going to have a lot of closeouts. So you get good at doing a maneuver on the closeout. And the second thing is make sure that you have a really good paddle so you can get into waves early enough, because if you're dealing with fickle waves, a lot of times you only have a second or two to try to pull a maneuver or even do one. And if you're not in the wave early enough, the wave closes out, next thing you know, you're paddling back out. So I would say that maximize. Every time the wave closes out, try to do a maneuver on the closeout. And that will basically up your percent. It's like board time, wave time. The more time you get doing something, the better chance. And then of course, watching tutorials, watching videos. That way you can see. And if you can have somebody film you, even better. And if you guys want to film yourself and not GoPro from the beach, we'd be happy to take a look at it. We're not going to review GoPro footage from a surfboard because you can't tell anything from that. I mean, you can tell maybe the pop-up, and that's about it. All right, so hit us with some new questions.
Kilkilin asks, how do you drop into hollow slabs? I've snapped 2 of my boards trying. Like
paddling into steep, basically pitching waves. One is you got to have a pretty good paddle. Second is one of the biggest mistakes is people try to stand up too early. One of the things you got to remember is a lot of times you can paddle an extra 1 or 2 paddles actually and start kind of going down the line before you stand up. Watch the guys take off at Pipeline and Chopu. Those guys will paddle. The wave comes up, so the steeper a wave is, the faster the face shoots up. So a lot of times when you're on a steep wave, you think you're down the wave, and then when you stop paddling, it starts to lift you back to the top. And then when you stand up, you're kind of caught, and then you go over. So one of the things is you got to really paddle and make sure you're into the wave. And then basically you want to snap to your feet compressed as quickly as possible. But probably the paddle is really where it's at. It's making sure that you're paddling that extra paddle. That's the biggest mistake that guys make on barreling waves. Because
you don't want to like start paddling and then kind of hesitate, like I don't know if I want to go, and then decide you want to go.
If you watch John Florence when he surfed Chopu on that ridiculous swell, if you slow it down and you watch him paddle into a wave and he's going backside, you don't notice it when it's fast. It looks like he paddles in, he stands up, and he takes this crazy drop. But if you slow it down and you watch it in slow-mo, he literally paddles down more than half of the wave, and then by the time he stands up, it's shot him back to the top, and then he has to take that drop. So, hope that answers your question. All right.
Gabriel Pinho, what can I do when I try to cut back and the board doesn't follow my body?
Okay, so you're trying to do a cutback, and then you turn your body, and then you keep turning and your board doesn't go with you. Well, that probably means one of two things. Your back foot's not far enough back, or you're not on rail enough, and that's usually... I would say before you... One of the mistakes people make with cutbacks is they lead too much with their hand and their head, and then they expect their board to follow. I find with cutbacks, a good way to approach it is you go to the top of the wave, and then you use your feet to initiate the cutback, and then you swing your arms and head into it to basically boost the cutback. So if you're trying to do this first and then turn the board, then that's when that problem is going to happen. Go up, start turning with your feet, and then follow through with your hand and head. What else we got? What else we got?
A Tahiti trip, how much do good boards cost?
You know what?
Depends what
That could
brand.
be anywhere. So many places are different. I mean, a good name brand board here is $700-800. A good custom shape board is about $450.
So you can get a board that works really good from maybe a not name brand shaper, and you can get a board that doesn't work good at all from a name brand.
Used boards. So recently you guys seen Atua's surfboard. It's a Weirdo Ripper. We bought it used, but it was almost brand new, and we bought it. It came. Our cost ended up being about $450, and it was almost brand new. Whereas the same board was in a rack, pretty much, and it was $700. That's a good one right there. Best way to spot a wave.
For quack quack.
What best way to spot a wave? So how to read a wave. We actually did a video on reading waves, so you should definitely go back and check that out, because that explains the angles and what to look for. But the easiest way to basically teach somebody how to spot a wave is to tell them to watch lots of waves. So you don't have to catch lots of waves, just watch lots of waves. Pay attention. I see a lot of beginners and intermediates paddle out there, and they're not even looking at the waves. They're just looking around. They're looking at other surfers. Watch the waves coming. The more waves you see and the more you pay attention, the quicker you will just instinctively figure it out. What's next? Got any good questions, bud?
Well, everyone's wondering about how do we deal with worrying about sharks.
I don't really worry about them that much.
You know, some people have a fear of sharks. Some people just don't. A lot of people grow up around the ocean, and we know it's a risk. Do you worry about having a car accident every time you get in a car? How do you deal with that? Chances are of dying in a car are way, way higher than getting killed by a shark. So it's really how you look at it. You know, we've grown up in the ocean, and we know the risk is there, but you also know the risk is there when you get in a car. You know that on any given day you can get into a car accident and literally just be taken out. Got any more questions on learning to surf or improving surfing? Okay, here's one about the pop-up. Banjo Casey
Casey's.
is fat. Are you referring to Casey Neistat? What do you think about the pop-up when people like me seem to look up? I'd love to answer that question, but I really have no idea what you mean. You'll have to re-ask that.
J. New. Do you need to use your hips to generate speed?
Yes. Yes, for sure. The reason why you have to use your hips is to turn your upper body and to drive your knees when you turn your knees and you press. So yes, if you didn't use your hips, I mean you can generate speed without using your hips, but you're not going to generate as much. Same with using your arms. You should be using your hips, your arms, and your legs.
Wait. Banjo, sorry, meant down.
Oh, gotcha.
Like if you're looking downwards at the pop-up.
Stop looking down. So what you want to do is you want to practice this on dry land. You do the pop-up on the ground, you look at something. So let's say you're on the ground and you want to practice your pop-up. Fixate your eyes on something that's about waist level, and then don't take your eyes off that while you practice the pop-up on dry ground. Now if you want to practice pop-up going left or right, you do the same thing. You fixate on something to your left or something to your right, and you simulate going right or left. The idea is, so let's say I want to do a pop-up and I'm going to go to my right. I'm going to paddle, I'm going to look, and as I pop up, I'm going to keep my head looking. Boom. Same thing backside, especially backside. You do the same thing. You pretend like you're paddling, you find the fixated spot, then you practice your pop-up, boom. If you're having problems and you don't dry land simulate it, then it's just going to take you a lot longer. Do it on the beach, do it at home. Before you know it, you won't be doing it anymore.
You can even write maybe a little note on a piece of duct tape, put on the nose of your surfboard. That way it refreshes in your mind when you're out surfing.
Here's a good question.
Itai trip. How do I practice my paddle strength without being close or near the beach?
Swimming pool. Paddling a surfboard in a swimming pool, on a boogie board.
Or you can tell like your friend to hold the
Whoa.
leash, and then you just paddle.
You can do very light weights, like 2-3 pounds, and do like exercises where you're constantly, bent over doing these kind of things. Maybe 50 this way, 50 this way, 50 that. We're very, very light weights, just to basically keep that endurance in the shoulder area. All right, so let's hold on to that question, and we're going to move on to surfboards because we're at 21 minutes. So if you guys have any questions about surfboards, go ahead and shoot them on right now. We're gonna move into talking about surfboards and types of surfboards and volume and stuff, whatever. All right, what do you got there, too?
Ryan Burden. Do you like quad fin or thruster fin setup for small 2 to 5 foot waves? I still haven't found a huge difference, but maybe you guys know more about it. What do you guys like?
I love quad fins for mushy waves, but it depends on the surfboard. So if it's more of a shortboard style, I want thruster, and if it's more of a wide kind of fish, I really like the quad fin for smaller waves. If it's a really, really easy quad fin fish, I might experiment with the thruster, but I find that it's more about the board, matching the fins to the board than just the fin setup.
Well, I found that with my new board, since I've been using a quad fin, I feel like I always have way more speed. Like even if I do a maneuver and it maybe doesn't come out perfectly, I'm able to get my speed back and then keep going on the wave, whereas I normally would have lost it. Brandon Lawrence, how do I avoid breaking the nose of my board?
From what? Purling? Are you purling? Nose diving in shallow waves?
Well, they actually have these little nose guards. If you have a short board with like a pointy nose, you can actually get this little rubber attachment that glues to the nose, and then if you hit your nose on something, it kind of just bounces off like a little protector.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about the tip. But if you're talking about like actually up the board a little bit, like maybe this much of the board or whatever, I've seen people that break their board a lot because they nosedive, and that just means they got to figure out their paddle and timing a little bit better. Make sure to watch the wave when you paddle into it. A lot of beginners don't do that. You got to remember to do that. Head check, watch the wave, look forward.
Piano. Is it different catching a wave with a longboard to a shortboard?
Way different. Night and day.
Yeah.
A longboard's way easier. Unless you're surfing really, really steep pitching waves, then a longboard's actually can be really difficult unless you're super advanced. But for the most part, if you're a beginner intermediate, a longboard is always going to be easier. Effortless. But you don't have to go longboard. You can go a mini mal, or you can go an oversized fish. Stuff like that. What else we got, Atua?
What I find with longboards to shortboards for surfing maybe a little bit more advanced, like catching the peak, is on a longboard I can paddle for little bumps and sometimes get into them, whereas on a shortboard I wouldn't even bother.
It's true. On a longboard, you're going to make sections, and you'll be able to ride a wave a lot longer, and you get in a lot earlier. So a lot of waves that would close out won't close out on a longboard because you're in so early that you can get way past the section. The fact is, unless you're having a hard time paddling out because you have to go through and turtle roll, longer boards are going to get your wave count up as a beginner intermediate.
Ollie Masters, what's the best size board to start with? What did
If
you
you're
guys
brand
find?
new, as big as you can get without it being heavy and cumbersome. So, as big and as light as you can get. So they have some really light foam tops, longboards that work really good. Now, you don't have to stay on a longboard forever. Just get the fundamentals down, and then you can start dropping down in size. Somebody said, don't get a cheap surfboard.
Don't get it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. If you can get a good quality board, but usually as beginners, a lot of times with beginners, it's better to maybe rent a board or buy a used board because you're not really sure yet what you're, unless you have somebody who's an expert who's guiding you into buying your first surfboard, you're going to be probably kind of lost.
And the one thing I guess is good about getting maybe a cheaper board when you first start out is if you ding it or break it when you're first starting out, it's not as much of an investment and then when you're a little bit better, if you spend more, the board may last you longer.
And thank you guys for all showing up and hitting up us with questions. Seems like we always have around 80 to 90 people kind of popping in and out, which is pretty cool. I can't imagine having like 500 to 1,000 people on it that's at the exact same time. The questions would be going up so fast that it would be impossible to answer.
Legion Gaming. Do you guys have a longboard?
Atua has a longboard.
I have a longboard. Yeah, I actually enjoy surfing a longboard because it's like a totally different feel. So even though I've been surfing for quite a few years and I usually surf a shortboard, I still find it fun to use a longboard because you can do different maneuvers like walk on the board and fun stuff like that.
Keely doesn't have a longboard. She uses the fish. I can go to about 2 or 3 surf camps and use their longboard anytime I want, so there's no reason for me to buy one. I don't surf them that often, but if I get the itch to get on a longboard, I just run over to one of my friends' surf camps and I go, can I take out your longboard? And of course they're always like, yeah man, go for it. It's not being used.
Corky asks us if we speak Russian.
No.
Nope.
Not yet.
Nope.
Find something that hasn't been asked, buddy.
What is the best? All right, Adrian Market. What is the best tail to shape on your board? Tail shape?
Tail shape? Well, if you're a beginner, I'm going to just say either a rounded or a squash. Very basic. If you're a fish, then obviously a swallow fishtail. But those are probably the 3 basics. Really kind of depends on the style of board you're going to get. Like you wouldn't typically have a longboard with a big swallowtail.
William Smith. Have you ever surfed in a wetsuit? Please answer.
These guys have not. I have. California and New Zealand. I've actually surfed New Zealand, but not much. I was only there for a short period. Didn't get very good waves. Actually got okay waves, I guess. Do you ever...
Itai Trip. Do you ever break an expensive board?
Yes. I've had boards break in the first week of owning them.
I haven't had that happen, but...
It will. Eventually it happens to everybody that surfs enough.
Once I broke one of the surf camp's longboards.
Question 6'2". Go down right there.
Yep.
Down. Up, right there.
Lewis Bennett. I am 6'2" and surf a 6'4" at the moment, and I find it hard to turn quick enough for a cutback. Should I get a shorter board or try a thinner one? Please help.
No, it's not the board that's preventing you from doing the cutback. It's going to be technique. Because being 6'2" and 6'4", it wouldn't be the length of the board. It would be more about your foot placement and when and where you're doing the turn and how you're basically lining your body up. Unless the board is absolute junk, but we can't tell without seeing it.
Wait, where was it? I saw it. There was a question. I don't know where it went. Adrian Market. Would you ever surf big waves like Jaws?
Maybe. I don't know. It's one of those kind of things where you gotta want it, and you don't go do it just because. It's not like skydiving where you go, I want to just kind of cross it off my bucket list. You need to be trained. You need to know what you're doing. You need to be good in the water. I mean, some guys don't have a ton of experience and will pay somebody to tow them in, and the guys will take care of them. But you gotta want it. Am I afraid of it? Would I be afraid of it? Not if I'm feeling healthy, and if I actually had the equipment and the crew to do it. Of course, Keely and Atua, maybe when they're older, who knows?
I don't have like a huge interest in surfing massive waves right now, but you never know. One day in the future, I might be like, "Oh, I want to go surf Jaws."
To be honest, surfing Jaws, towing into Jaws with the crew, to me, is a lot less scary than paddling into 10-foot, 12-foot chopu or even pipeline. Because the hardest part about big wave surfing is the paddling, is making the drop. So, and if you have the proper gear and all that, yeah, you're going to get ragdolled and all that, and there is the risk, but paddling into big waves is way scarier than getting launched into one. Of course, if the wave is 60, 70 feet tall, then
Yeah, that's
then it
pretty
doesn't
scary.
matter. It's all scary, but
FY, what is the biggest break you have ever surfed? Atua. Well, sometimes out here it's gotten pretty big. Maybe what, like, how many feet would you say?
maybe like
10?
12, 13 foot faces.
Yeah, good size.
Yeah. Every once in a while it gets a little over, like double overhead, little bit bigger than double overhead. Do you ever go skydiving? Never. Not yet.
Nope, not yet.
Don't have an interest in it yet. Maybe that'll change.
Antone McInder, have you ever gotten barreled with fully standing up?
Yes.
No, not me. Not like completely standing up.
What does that say? 3, 4? I don't know. All right, guys. So we're gonna go to 35 minutes. Feel free to ask whatever you want for the last 5 minutes. We're just gonna answer just random questions. You go ahead and be the randomizer, Atua.
XKateBX, how many places in the world have you surfed?
I've only surfed in Costa Rica.
I've surfed a few different spots in Costa Rica and then once in California. Once.
I've surfed California, Hawaii, Costa Rica, Panama, New Zealand, Bali. I think that's it. There may be another one in there that I forgot about.
Brendan Gitz, if a bear and a shark got in a fight, who would win?
If a bear and a shark got into a fight, I guess it would depend on if you were in the water
Yeah.
or on land. If you were in the water,
I think the shark.
especially if it was like a great white, yeah. I don't think the bear would have much of a chance. You never know, though. Maybe the bear would be able to, like,
Punch him in the nose.
rip his eyes out or something. That would be interesting. But the problem is, the bear wouldn't see it coming. Maybe they would. I don't know. All right, next.
Nathan Clark, have you guys ever been to the UK?
Not yet.
Not me.
One day.
Alicia Wagner, what is your favorite surf destination?
Favorite surf destination would be anywhere that the water is warm, the waves are uncrowded, and consistent. Anywhere from chest to double overhead. That would be the best.
Jay Smith. Is it Jordy Smith? Anyone know of a good thing to eat before going out? My arms sometimes get tired after being out a lot in my wetsuit.
Coffee smoothies seem to work really well for us. I never run out of energy when I drink a coffee smoothie right before a session.
I find that eating sometimes fruit, not eating like a big heavy meal. Sometimes what I try to do is maybe bring a snack out there, like I'll take a chocolate bar in my pocket, or I've tried that, and
Yeah, but just what's a good snack? Anything that's not super heavy, that's going to give you a good amount of sugar, energy for the next, say, hour and a half. Not like a big pasta meal or something like that. That's something you eat the night before. So it's more about, like, if you're going to go right before, it's more about something that your body can access quickly, and that's something that you can break down easily, like fruit and sugar, stuff like that. All right. Go down. Somebody said something about moving.
The young filmmaker says dates are really good for energy.
There you go. Dates. Young filmmaker. Vegan,
Thanks.
right, young filmmaker? Make sure you guys check out young filmmaker's YouTube channel as well. He's got some really good editing skills, and he's been super supportive of everything that Atua and we've been doing.
Mullen van den Herk. Where are your names from?
35 minutes.
Yeah, we're going to end it pretty soon. Both of Atua and Keely's are Polynesian names. Atua's name can be found in more than one Polynesian country. You can find his name in, like, I believe in Samoa, Tahiti, a couple other. Keely's is kind of a spelled basically based on a Hawaiian name. So they're Polynesian names. Do you ever need to wear a wetsuit in Costa Rica? You never need to.
No.
There are times when the water gets cold from a cold front, and
Yeah.
you could if you wanted to, but you don't need to. What got you into what got you into YouTube?
Apple Pie Gaming.
The reason why we started this channel originally, Apple Pie Gaming, was because we owned a surf camp, Shaka Surf Camp at the time, and we wanted to basically have a way to help kind of people that were coming down, give them some videos, or people that wanted to keep improving. So we started putting up these videos. We had no idea that the rest of the world was going to like them, so that's what we started. And then random people started commenting, the views started going up, and we said, hey, wow, this is a thing, let's keep going. And the rest is history. Would you ever try and snowboard?
Josh Media.
For sure. I've actually snowboarded a few times, but these guys have not.
I want to
So
try out
Yeah.
snowboarding.
You got to
I
do
would
that.
like
You
to
guys
try.
need to do that. Yeah, I've snowboarded maybe 6 times.
Crusher 74. Who you pick for the 2017 Men's and World WSL Championship?
Who do we think will win?
I want Jordy Smith to win.
Jordy Smith could be a good candidate. I don't know. I mean, I'd love to see Slater pull it off. But there's so many good guys right now that are rising to the top that is a tough one. But a lot of the guys like Parkinson are kind of starting to slip. But Fanning, man, he's always, you can never count him out. That's
So
a good one.
consistent.
I'd have to see the first contest to kind of see what the guys are up to. Watch the first contest, and then I can make my picks. Speaking of contests, the season's swinging pretty soon, right?
Surfing in the Olympics.
Surfing.
Best preparation for surfing when you live in the city by back to the basics. Swimming, skateboarding, watching surf videos, lots of skateboarding like a surfer, and of course simulations, drilling, and watching videos, which I already said. We're going to go to 40 minutes this time, but at 40 minutes then we're going to cut it.
We're just gonna.
We keep extending it longer and longer and longer. It's because it's so much fun. We like
Yeah.
answering you guys' questions.
Adrian Market. What is your favorite sport apart from surfing? I like biking.
For me, it used to be beach volleyball, but not so much anymore. Actually, not at all anymore.
I don't know. I like doing art. I know that's not a sport, but paint like art.
I can't think of anything.
Skateboarding. Sometimes I go skateboard. Skateboarding and biking.
Cool. What else? Atua, what got you into gone?
Atua, what got you into surfing?
He grew up at a surf camp.
Yep.
How do you not get into surfing?
Itai, who is your favorite surfer? Jordy Smith and Mick Fanning.
Yeah, I don't know. It changes constantly for me. I'm constantly liking different surfing. What about Clay Marzo?
Yeah, Clay Mars. That's
I
pretty
like
cool.
Carissa Moore.
As far as surfing, Keely likes Carissa Moore.
Okay, yeah, Clay Marzo is
He's just fun to watch because it's ridiculous.
just you don't know what he's gonna do.
I wouldn't even try to learn how to do some of the stuff he does.
He does stuff that I've
All right, let's take one more question, Atua, and then we will wrap it up. Find a good one.
Come on, there's only 20 more seconds.
This one?
Whatever. Just pick one and ask it.
Arno Tria. Is there more waves in Hawaii or Costa Rica in the summer?
That is kind of an impossible question to answer. I would say, from my experience, Costa Rica seems to be more consistent, meaning there's always something at certain breaks every single day, whereas Hawaii, I remember always having to travel around to different spots depending on the swell direction, and I like being lazy and just being able to walk to like 1 or 2 breaks and just surf them as much as possible, and then when every once in a while I want to scratch an itch, then I'll drive to another spot. But I would say Costa Rica seems to be just ridiculously consistent.
Okay, 40.
All right, guys. So that is the end of. Thank you so much for being here, and we will see you guys in the next video. Pura vida
And aloha.
and aloha.
And don't forget to subscribe.
What do we hit this right?
Oh, my voice.
Yeah, that thing.